I think we'll start. Just wanted to give a couple of minutes so that people could join us. So welcome to this Workplace Live. I'm Layla from the Partnerships and Learning team at Local Trust, and I'm joined this morning, sort of, by Sheetal from Koreo, who are our partner on the Community Leadership Academy. So it's the kind of the third wave of the Community Leadership Academy has gone live. So we're open for applications and nominations at the moment. And I'm going to pass straight over to Sheetal to talk through a bit about the Community Leadership Academy and how it works. And obviously, as you're hearing from Sheetal, if you've got any questions you want to pop into the chat, when we get to the end, I will field those to Sheetal while she's with us. And just to say that this is being recorded as well, so it'll be available to watch back if you want to share it with other people. So I'll pass over to Sheetal now. Thanks, Sheetal.
Thanks, Layla. Hi, everyone. As Layla just said, I'm Sheetal. I work for an organisation called Koreo. We are one of the delivery partners for the Community Leadership Academy, or CLA for short. I'm the project manager, so you'd be working with me in terms of this kind of recruitment process, and also if you did join the programme, see a lot of me as well. But yeah, really lovely to be with you all here today. I'm going to spend the next sort of 10 minutes or so talking through what is the Community Leadership Academy, who is it for, how does it work, and then, as Layla's just said, there'll be space for questions. So if you do have them for me throughout as I'm speaking, pop them in the chat and Layla will share them with me afterwards. And we'll also share at the end, there's other ways in which you can connect with me afterwards if you want to chat further. And we're also holding another kind of Q&A space in the new year if you have further questions later on. So lots of opportunities to ask questions or chat after today's session as well, but just starting with a bit of initial information about what the CLA is. So the CLA was initially created by Local Trust a few years ago in partnership with Koreo, which is the organisation I work for. We're a social impact learning consultancy. Also with the Young Foundation, who are a charity who do a lot of research into kind of grassroots communities and organising, and do a lot of kind of delivery and design around that. And Northern Soul, which again is an incredible organisation working with local communities on the ground. So the three of us worked in partnership with Local Trust to create the Community Leadership Academy, which is a form of structured support for volunteers volunteering with big locals, to help again improve the way in which you're doing the delivery of your work, and also have the space to reflect on yourself as a community volunteer. What does that mean in your work? How do you think about, you know, the ways in which you interact with other people, with other volunteers? How do you work in a team? How do you think about the bigger impact you're trying to make? So creating that space for individuals to reflect on the incredible volunteering work that you all do, but from a personal lens, but also reflecting out into the community and the teams you work in as well. So it's a programme of structured support to do all of those things. As you've just heard me say, the programme is targeted at volunteers who volunteer with a big local. So unfortunately, not for paid workers on the big local programme, but for volunteers who are volunteering with a big local area. You know, recognising that actually volunteer support is not something that's easily accessible for many people. And we wanted to create this programme as an opportunity for those of you, again, who are giving up your time, your energy, your expertise to your local communities, to have that space to reflect on that work, to reflect on yourself, your skills and your journey, and how you, again, connect back out into communities because of that. So that's who it's aimed for. And we've had 2 years of the programme so far. We just wrapped up year 2 of the kind of second cohort of the programme recently in October, and we just, as we're here talking about today, just launched the recruitment for the 3rd year of the programme, which will begin in the new year. So the 3rd year is a 12-month programme. We're currently, like I said, open for applications, with the programme itself kicking off in the spring, and the first launch in-person session on the 12th of May. What you could expect if you applied and then were successful in joining the programme is to attend 1 session a month, as I said, starting from May and running into 2024. and one session which would be about 2.5 to 3 hours a month. And also running alongside that, there'll be kind of a series of coaching sessions, which I'll come back to later, that you'll have access to. So one session a month, that's the kind of minimum commitment we're asking for in terms of the program. These sessions will be a mix of what we call core workshops, so exploring lots of different aspects of leadership. Community Leadership Academy, the big term in the title of the program. What is leadership? What does that even mean? And really understanding that for yourself in the context of the work that you do. Thinking about how you develop leadership as a skill with yourself, but then also with others. How do you develop others to embrace their own leadership skills? And finally, how do you share leadership? How do you share responsibility? How do you share the incredible work that you're doing? And again, thinking about that wider impact in communities that you want to make. How do you distribute and share that leadership as well? So those are the core themes: understanding, developing, and distributing leadership is the kind of thread or the journey of the program. And we'll have a core workshop that sits under one of those headings, that explores different frameworks or tools or resources or conversations around those topics. And then you'll also have access to problem-solving sessions, which are much more practical, where you'll have that opportunity to connect with others on your cohort, really think about a challenge you're facing in your community work or in your self-development or in your role as a volunteer. Actually, I'm finding this really hard. Have you experienced this? And creating spaces for you to connect with others, to collectively problem solve, and to take those solutions back out into your community and try those out. So a mixture of a bit more kind of theoretical and resource focused workshops, but also the practical and solution focused workshops as well. Again, with that idea to give you that, the tools, the ideas, the creativity, all those things you need to go back to your communities and do the incredible work you're doing, but hopefully with greater confidence, greater access to resources, and greater skills as well. So that's what you can expect in terms of sessions. So those are monthly throughout the 12-month program. We're also, something I've mentioned already, we'll be giving you access to a coaching space, a one-to-one coaching space as part of the program. So when you join, you'll be matched with a coach, a qualified coach who's worked with us before. And you get 5 sessions with that coach throughout the duration of the program. And coaching is on a similar spectrum to mentoring, for those of you who are more familiar with mentoring. But the empowering coaching comes from the individual, so yourself in this case, if you are successful. Whereas in mentoring, you might go to a mentor and they might give you some advice and guidance based on their experience of a certain topic or issue. In a coaching experience, the belief is that the participant, the individual themselves, has the answers to all their challenges, and the coach's role is to help you to unlock that thinking to get to that solution yourself. So it's very much built on the idea that you already have the answers and the skills and the expertise. It's just how do we think around it to get to that answer. So you have 5 of those sessions, and that's really valuable space. Like I said, a one-to-one space for you to reflect on your own development. Are there skills that you've always wanted to think about? Is it something to do with your confidence, for example? Where would you like to go if you are in, if you're a chair, for example, if you're a vice chair, if you're in a specific role and you want to develop, what could that journey look like? That coaching space is a really kind of wonderful space to explore those topics for yourself and your own personal development. So really balances again with those group sessions you'll be attending once a month as part of the program. Now, where do these sessions take place? Most of them will be online, so the majority you can expect will be on Zoom. And again, that's because the big locals are spread all across the country, and we recognise that getting everyone in the same space once a month is quite difficult from all over where everyone's based. So sessions are online for the most part, but we'll have 2 opportunities to meet in person throughout the programme. First at the launch event in May, which I've already mentioned, and secondly, about halfway through the programme, we'll bring everyone back together, because we do recognise the significance as well of in-person connection and being able to build, again, solutions together, be creative together, just to feel that sense of solidarity and build that network with others doing similar work across the country and might have experienced similar challenges too. So 2 points of in-person connection. Majority of the program will be delivered on Zoom, and hopefully that feels it's a little bit more accessible because you can join from home, you can join from work. We've had people join sometimes. And yeah, we've also had people join from, traveling wherever. We want to make these, feel like you can join in from wherever you happen to be based at that time. So majority of sessions are online. I feel like I've zoomed through what is the CLA and what does it look like. But in terms of the kind of next steps, if you're interested in the program itself, there are 2 ways to let us know. Firstly, there is an application form. So if you feel actually this feels really interesting to me, I've always wanted a space to firstly reflect on my own work as a volunteer with my big local, but also to to connect with other people and to share challenges and to learn. Mindful that the big local program is coming to a close in a few years' time. A lot of you are in the final stages of that kind of spending out. What does that mean for you? What does it mean for the legacy of your local area? Those big questions you're probably holding in terms of your work. This is a really great space to explore those questions with other people who are probably holding similar questions. So if that's something you've been looking for, a network of people to help support you, a space to learn about different elements of what it means to be in a community, what does it mean to be a community leader, then yeah, you can apply directly via our application form. And I know Layla will be sharing all of these links in the chat and with you afterwards. But also, if you think this doesn't feel like for me specifically, but I can picture someone who would work, would find this a really valuable space for them, you can also nominate someone for this program. So that, again, that's another form, it's a nomination form, and you can share their details and then they'll get an email saying you've been nominated for the CLA, and they'll have the opportunity and the choice to apply if they feel like it's something for them. So 2 ways to let us know about interest in the program. But yeah, like I think that was a CLA in a very small nutshell, actually. And I'm definitely sure there's questions. I'm really happy to like I said, continue chatting about any elements of those things. But I'll hold it there, Layla, because I'm sure you've got some questions for me, which I'm happy to answer.
I do, yes. We've had a couple of questions coming in while you've been talking, so thanks so much for that. I'm going to do them in order. So the first one that came through was, apart from being a volunteer at a big local, what else are you looking for in an application?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. There aren't actually that many criteria for applying. I think the biggest thing is interest. Is interest in like everything I've just said, that space to reflect on yourself, on your personal development, that desire to connect with others who again will be volunteers from other big locals, and creating that network. And also just to add, we already have, because we've had 2 years of the program, 2 cohorts worth of people who are alumni who you can also connect with through the program, who've already done the CLA and will be again a really good source of support. If those things are important to you, space for your development, and also to get ideas on actually maybe we're struggling a little bit with the final couple of years of the big local program. What do we do next? Some of those bigger picture questions, which I know I can understand are probably coming up right now. This is a really great space to explore that. And again, in solidarity with others who are probably in very similar positions. So if that feels like something that would be valuable for you, I think that commitment is something, and that kind of desire to do those things is something we're looking for. The application form itself is, in terms of what we're asking about the program, is quite short. Most of it is kind of personal details, normal, you'd expect. The main kind of questions we're asking are your reflections on your work, what you'd like to gain in terms of your self-development, and also what you're thinking about in terms of your community for the future. So there's 3 kind of core questions in there really about your interest personally, how that relates to your team and your big local, and then also thinking about that wider connection with your community. So only three questions. And again, I think it's the commitment and your kind of passion and excitement for that space is kind of really what we're looking for. There's not much more criteria than that. We are mindful. The other thing I should share here is that there are only 25 spaces for the third year of the program, which is smaller than previous years. So if you do know people who've already done it, that is noticeably smaller. So I should say that. And in those cases where we have more applications than we have places, we may start to look at certain areas that perhaps haven't had people on the CLA before. And also, again, thinking about that journey of where you are on your bigger local program, which will only factor in if we get way more applications than we have spaces for. And Layla, actually, you might have something to add to that.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because we've had a few questions through. Jim's asked a few questions around kind of all around the application, so it might just be worth saying, exactly as Sheetal said, actually there are 25 spaces this time, and we will be looking for kind of a breadth of areas taking part is obviously like one of the things that we'll be looking at. So yeah, it doesn't preclude people applying if your area's taken part before, but just as she said, if it's very competitive, then that's one of the things that we'll be looking at. So yeah, there's another question about people who've applied before but been turned down and whether they'd be guaranteed a place. And I think I'm happy to answer that one, because that might help, just to say there's no guarantee of a place. We want to make it as kind of transparent as possible. I hope everyone can hear me okay. So yeah, we just want to make sure that we assess everybody kind of on the basis that they're coming through at. So everyone will be asked to complete the application form, and then we'll look based on the applications at exactly those three levels that Sheetal mentioned. So individual, partnership and community, as well as kind of making sure we've got a breadth of areas taking part. And then, yeah, so I think that relates to the other question that he'd asked, which is what are the criteria? I think, again, exactly as Sheetal said, it is quite open, and the application is really your opportunity to put forward what the benefits would be to your partnership. And the other question that he's asked is, can people access coaching only? And if not, why not? Sheetal, shall I take that one as well? Because that's probably on us, really, as local trust. So you can't just access the coaching. I guess the reason being that would take out of the 25 places. At that point, you know, the idea is that the whole program is beneficial. I will let Sheetal come in if she's got kind of more things to say about that. But I think the idea is that sort of the coaching reinforces the group sessions and vice versa. So yeah, although we understand there's kind of flexibility in terms of kind of how you can engage with it, yeah, the commitment is there for the coaching and the wider support. I don't know if there's anything for you to add to that, Sheetal.
Yeah, I think just to reiterate, it's not primarily a coaching, but coaching is one core strand alongside the workshops. And what we found, you know, in the previous 2 years is that a lot of people, there are certain sessions that feel very aligned to actually a coaching space, and so participants will take, oh, we learnt this approach to whatever, difficult conversations, for example, or like confidence, or one key one we've done before is on imposter syndrome, for example. So really thinking about, am I right to do this role that I'm doing? And that a lot of those kind of factors really feed into actually what you end up discussing in coaching and vice versa, because it is all designed to kind of feed in both ways. And then, you know, what you come up with coaching might feed back into the next session or something you try in your community. So I think, yeah, the intention and the way it's been designed is that so that they kind of feed into each other, even at a top level. So yeah.
Great, that's really helpful. There is another question about coaching, which is just so can you tell us a bit more about the coaching and how you match up participants with the right coach for them?
That's a really good question. Yeah, so coaching is definitely a very unique practice. And I think, like I said, I tried to compare it to mentoring earlier as hopefully a helpful comparison, because I think mentoring feels like an easier practice or tool that, you know, you might be mentoring, you might have been mentored, but, you know, it's the term that we hear a lot. But whereas, like I say, in a mentoring relationship, the power is with the mentor and mentoring someone else. In a coaching relationship, the power is very much with you who is being coached, because you bring the topic in. So I think, again, the difference is you'd be expected to prepare in thinking about, actually, in this coaching session, I want to discuss a recent challenge I had in my partnership meeting, for example, that made me feel XYZ. And you go in with the intention to say, this is what I want to talk about, and the coach will take you through, coaching, really good kind of coaching questions and approaches to help you feel like you can leave the session either with a solution or with some reflection or more, further questions for yourself actually that have helped you in that thought journey. So the idea is that you are doing work in that session. It's not meant to be passive in the same way. This is not putting any kind of not degrading mentoring at all, but mentoring is very much kind of absorbing information from a mentor in many respects. Whereas in coaching, the expectation is you come very present with a challenge in mind, and are expected to do the reflective and the thinking work in that space. So it is quite different. And just, we ease you into it. We do an intro to coaching as part of the program. So we'll have all of that in a lot more detail from me and the program team on joining the program. In terms of coaching matching, that's a really good question. And thank you for asking it. We definitely factor in certain things. Originally, when the program was designed, it was pre-COVID, and one factor was geography, because we were really encouraging coaching sessions to take place in person. So we've got coaches from all across the country with all lots of different backgrounds. And I think what we're trying to do this year, again, having learned from the previous 2 years, is recognise where, for example, if you'd be more comfortable with the coach of a similar background to yourself, while we can't always guarantee something like that, we appreciate that. But it is a one-to-one space, and that safety is really important. So if that would be something that would factor into your experience, that is, conversations we'll be having as part of the onboarding process, which comes after applications close in the new year, and really recognizing actually, how you feel in the space compared to a group setting in a one-to-one space is quite different, and it can be quite a vulnerable space as well, because it is one-to-one and you're reflecting on things that affect you. So we're very much aware of those kind of factors, and if that would be something that would be important, then we definitely factor that in. Otherwise, I would say all of our coaches are all qualified coaches, have years of experience in the space, and most of them, if not all of them, have experience in grassroots community settings. That's the reason they're on the CLA, is that they've either been community workers or youth workers, or done some sort of community work themselves, or have been coaching in community settings for a long time. And so really understand actually the challenges that you're facing, because have experienced them or heard about them for a very long time. So to reassure you that, we select our coaches based on that experience for that reason, knowing that, the situations and the settings you're all working in are really specific, and we want to make sure that there is that understanding there as well. So I hope that was a helpful answer to that question.
That's really helpful, thank you. I think there's one more question I can see that's popped up, which says, it all sounds really interesting. 12 months feels like a big commitment. How did previous participants find the time commitment, and did they find it manageable?
Yeah, that's also a good question. And actually, part of the reason that this year it's 12 months is because it used to be 18 months. So it used to actually be a longer program. And part of, based on feedback, and again, recognizing coming out of lockdown in particular. So wave one, the first cohort of this program, began during the first lockdown, obviously not designed to do that. We didn't know the pandemic was coming, but commitment was higher during that time because everyone was at home. And so it was easy to be like, oh, I don't know what to do. The feeling of community feels really important to me. And so connection was quite high. What we found in year two was, because again, we're post-lockdown, I hesitate to say post-pandemic, we're post-lockdown. And so again, life is back in action, and that does affect commitment. So the reason we've shortened the program this time around. But the other thing we've also done is reduce the number of sessions, actually, comparison to year two. So whereas in year two we had one compulsory session a month, which was our core group workshop, and we ran that through multiple times in a month, so you could just join one of them. We also had a masterclass which was recorded, but had different types of resources and information shared. This time around, we've again stripped that back, recognizing that commitment can be really challenging, to just one session a month, and that is the only commitment you're making. We are kind of finalizing that what that day of the month and time of the month will be at present. So I'll be able to share that after this session, so that if that helps in terms of your decision about whether you can commit to that time of the month or not, and sorry, your decision to apply, then we'll share that as soon as possible, because we recognize that transparency is really important. And yeah, it's always tricky picking a day and time of week that works for 25 different people. So we want to get that out early, in the hopes that it will help you make your decision about whether to apply or not. But yeah, in terms, so we've definitely taken on that feedback. The program is a lot more stripped back than previous years, and a lot shorter for that reason. And we hope that kind of one session a month feels a lot more feasible as well for people, because of that.
It's really helpful, Sheetal. Thank you. I don't think I've seen that there's any more questions or comments coming through. I think the last thing that I was going to ask is, just because I understand it comes up quite a lot, this question of kind of feeling like a leader, and if people don't feel like that term means anything to them, just kind of what you would say about that, because obviously it's called the Community Leadership Academy, but I know that for some people that's quite a tricky concept.
Yeah, and if it helps, it's also quite a tricky concept for me. Yeah, I really appreciate that. It's in the title, and I think there can be a misconception that you must feel like a leader or be in a traditional leadership role to apply. So if you're a chair or a vice chair, naturally you kind of feel like, I have a position of leadership and responsibility, and therefore this program is specifically for me. And that is not the case at all. I just want to really emphasize that. We view leadership quite differently to, I guess, the traditional notion of, maybe someone standing, sitting at the head of a boardroom table and telling people what to do. And actually that's something we explore, particularly in the first kind of theme, which is understanding leadership, which is, what is it? What is leadership? How do we understand it? And actually, how does that concept of leadership translate very differently into community settings? Because it does in a lot of cases. You might see the traditional, someone is sitting at the head of a table telling people what to do in those settings too. But we also view leadership as a series of skills and a series of beliefs that you have that don't necessarily have to slot in with what we see maybe in wider society, or I think particularly in sort of corporate or political settings where we see, leader of the country, for example, is a certain type of person who dresses in a certain way. So if that word is throwing you off, please don't let it. Like I said, the main criteria is that you're a volunteer with a big local area or partnership, and that you feel excited by this opportunity to connect with others and explore your journey as a volunteer and what you can do and what you can take back to your communities. And we'll unpick leadership together, so don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all. But yeah, don't let that put you off. Your role as a volunteer in terms of hierarchy or anything does not matter at all.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Sheetal. So I just wanted to wrap up. So thank you so much for everyone who's joined. As I mentioned, this is going to be available to watch back afterwards. It'll also be on YouTube for anyone who's not on Workplace. I've put in the chat links to the Get Involved page, the information pack, and also to the opportunity to book in a chat with Sheetal if you've got like specific questions coming out of this that you don't feel like have been answered. Hopefully we got to everyone who made a comment in this while we were streaming. But just to remind you of the dates, so if you wanted to nominate somebody, it's the I've written it down as, I think it's the 27th of December. I hope I've got that right, at 5 p.m. I will double check this afterwards.
23rd, Layla.
23rd. I knew I'd written it down.
We're not expecting anyone to be nominating over Christmas.
That didn't look right, did it? Yeah, it's the other way around. It's okay, so the 23rd of December at 5 p.m. This is seamless. Is the deadline for nominations, and then you've got a bit more time if you want to apply. So for anyone who's putting in an application, it's 1 p.m. on the 27th of January. So we've got up until almost the end of that month. And we do have an information session. I think it's kind of the 12th of January. So yeah, in the new year. All of this information is in all of those links anyway, or feel free to get in touch with one of us. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you to Sheetal as well.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Layla.
Thank you.